Welcome to Commonwealth Journal, an award-winning program produced by WUMB Radio, exploring issues and ideas of interest to the people of Massachusetts. I'm Barbara Neely. We tend to think of women in Iraq and Saudi Arabia and other Eastern countries as second-class citizens. But what do they think of themselves? Join me when Wafa Salman of the Institute for Near Eastern and African Studies talks about the realities of women in the East on Commonwealth Journal.
You cannot believe what professors in well-reputable institutions are teaching about the Arab and Islamic worlds and about Islam.
How do you express your sexual identity if a part of your culture doesn't recognize the concept? Join me on Commonwealth Journal when Connie Chan, co-director of the Institute for Asian American Studies at UMass Boston, talks about sexual identity in the Asian American community.
The first concept of even having a personal identity is very different in East Asian cultures, where you have a role rather than an identity.
That's all ahead on Commonwealth Journal. Many Americans think the women in Eastern countries are to be pitied, what with arranged marriages, honor killings, female genital mutilation, and social and educational segregation. They seem to be prisoners of their own religions and/or societies, forced to cover their heads, if not their entire bodies. But are there other ways to interpret what we consider restrictions on Eastern women's rights to their own lives and choices? Is there really such a wide gap between the way women are curtailed in this society and the reality of women in Eastern societies? My Commonwealth Journal guest is here to rip some holes in the fabric of our ignorance on the subject of women in the East. Wafa Salman is the founder of the Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Institute of Near Eastern and African Studies. The Institute undertakes to educate and provide services to Arab, African, Middle Eastern, and Muslim communities, as well as to educate the American public and media on issues related to Islam, Africa, and the Arab and non-Arab Middle East. Wafa Salman is also a teacher, lecturer, activist, and the editor of Al-Wafa newsletter, focusing on Middle Eastern art, music, and literature.
Okay.
Wafa, how many of the things I mentioned in my introduction are common to most Middle Eastern societies? I mean, are the things that Americans like to concentrate on, the genital mutilation and so forth, are these really common to most Middle Eastern countries?
Absolutely not. Genital mutilation exists only in Egypt and Sudan. No, the rest of the Arab and Islamic world do not practice this or commit this practice rather. This is not Arabic and not Islamic. It had come from Africa to Egypt and Sudan. The other issue is the segregation of women that you brought in. That is only true in Saudi Arabia and to a lesser extent in Iran. Workplace all over the Arab and Islamic world is co-ed, all over. The only part that you see segregation of sexes is in the junior and high schools, which is happening even everywhere, not just in the Arab and Islamic worlds, for obvious reasons, hormone imbalances and stuff like that. It's very sad what the American public knows about that part of the world. I cannot tell you how much of this being so typically stereotyped in even textbooks of universities and especially major media, mainstream media. The other issue that you brought in about, I believe, the covering of the head. This is again another misconception. First of all, the Islamic head scarf that is normally white and sometimes colored by some people are surrounding the face and the chin. That is a very new phenomenon, by the way. It's some kind of a fashion the last 2 decades. People all the time, women I mean, from medieval times, they used to cover their heads, but there's no specific style of how to cover it. It could be variety of styles, and sometimes even shows some hair coming out and stuff like that. So there has never been any instructions in theory, in writing, as how you do it, which is very interesting. I mean, the idea that everybody in the Middle East is covering up, actually that's another misconception. The majority of city women do not wear the hijab. I come personally from a society in Baghdad, Iraq, where I grew up in the 70s. The entire school, we had only one teacher that was wearing the hijab and was considered an odd, thing, just a strange phenomenon. Everybody in school, students, teachers, and the director, nobody put the hijab. This is true all over the area where I lived, of course, all over Baghdad.
And the hijab is the total body cover?
No, the hijab is the head. The head. The total cover, the black from head to toes, by the way, exists only in two countries, Iran and Iraq. And Iraq is only put on by women in rural areas and less educated, perhaps sometimes less rich, or let's say poorer or whatever. In large cities, all over the Arab world, not just in Iraq, the majority of women do not wear the hijab.
What's your theory on how we have gotten so many misconceptions about women in the East?
Variety of, I think, mostly political and economic issues. I mean, when you want to have control over a country and country's resources, you have to first show how a bunch of primitive people they are, backward, they don't know how, they look odd, blah, 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 to justify how you can go and take over everything. They don't deserve it, they don't look right for us, and so on and so forth. That took quite at least half a century, by the way, of media bombardment and stereotyping. You cannot believe what professors in well-reputable institutions are teaching about the Arab and Islamic worlds and about Islam. Two issues, actually, which are of interest probably to the listeners. I was very surprised to learn the two issues that women are paid less for equal jobs here and in the industrial West, and the fact they change their names, it's a given when they marry. These two things really shocked me when I arrived in this country at the age of 19. First of all, in the Arab world, with the exception of Lebanon, and the Islamic world, women do not change their name when they marry. That's a given. You will be mocked if you change your name. It's like you're westernizing. You're like, oh, excuse me, you're being different or something. Right. It's like a property. Changes its name according to whomever owns you. And the amazing one is that you do the same work and you get paid less. That again does not exist in the Arab and Islamic world. And people here do not want to believe it. Every time you discuss this with them, women come and literally tell me, we don't believe it. Okay, why do I say something out of, nowhere?
Something that can very easily be checked.
Exactly, very easily be checked. This is how we lived and this is how we grew up.
There is a difference, is there not, however, between sort of public and private power. And by private power, I'm talking about family power.
Society as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Women in the West like to talk about the fact that women in the East, and I'm having a hard time not laughing when I say this because it sounds so ridiculous, given the lack of power that we have here.
Yeah.
But let me finish.
Right.
Women in the West like to point out that women in the East do not have public power.
It's very incorrect, actually. We saw engineers, we saw judges, lawyers, even prime ministers before even we hear of Madeleine Albright here. I mean, we're talking decades before, whether it is Benazir Bhutto of Pakistan, Indira Gandhi of India, several prime ministers and ministers in Turkey, in Iraq in the 50s, in Syria. I mean, they all came at least 2 decades before we heard about somebody like Madeleine Albright. Do you realize that where I come from, for instance, in Baghdad, Iraq, when I grew up in the 70s, there were more percentage of engineer women than when I came here and studied civil engineering in Boston.
Today on Commonwealth Journal, we're talking about the realities of women in the East with Wafa Salman, founder of the Institute for Near Eastern and African Studies. I've got an email here that is from you that's entitled, has a subject of Algerian, Nigerian, and Saudi Women Project. What's this?
This is some kind of another project, although maybe a drop of an ocean type of project, in an effort to give some positive image to Arab and African women. These incidents took place actually since the 60s, whereby women challenged the status quo and literally challenged man and got real effective result from all of it. That is, Algerian women acting as shields
between two fighting groups of men.
Exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it really prevented a civil war, and nobody talks about it. Nobody heard about it. The second event is the Saudi woman boycott of American businesses. Not even the Arabic media, the Arab world's media, had said anything about Saudi women boycotting American businesses.
You mean this sort of the sort of recent news reports about boycotts?
It's recent.
This has really been started by Saudi women?
Well, it did not literally start by Saudi women, but it had made an outstanding effect in Saudi Arabia with regard to American businesses.
I see.
But then every time you hear about the boycott, it is Arab world's boycott against American Israeli products, but never mention how much women are doing.
Spearheading that.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the third case is, of course, although was publicized by the Nigerian woman, but we never heard who they are, what is the leadership, how they planned all of this.
These are the Nigerian women who had an action at the oil field. Oh, we're going to take off their clothes.
Yes, exactly.
Tell that story.
Yeah, they protested and took over 5 Exxon oil stations. They trapped 700 employees, American, British, and even Nigerian and Canadian, for 10 days. And by the time they reached the top, when they took off their clothes, everybody said, okay, let's make a deal. Let's negotiate. There are ways of struggling and boycotting and trying to challenge the status quo. And the project is to write about these women, about these incidents, to document them, because you don't see them documented well in his story. Yeah. So I really hope that the listeners will be able to help us with these incidents, more information, more,
So if people know of other stories of other women in the Middle East and Africa who have,
especially the forgotten incident of Algeria.
Okay.
And even Algerians have not heard about it, which is amazing. So if they can contact us,
so anybody who knows anything about these 3 stories, the Algerian women who stopped the Civil War,
right,
the Nigerian women who confronted Exxon, and the Saudi women who are keeping the boycott of American and Israeli products alive.
Right.
Anybody who has any information on any of those stories, you want to hear from them.
And would love to also hear from the women who participated in all of these incidents. Our email address is ineas@aol.com, and our website is ineas.org.
Great. What is it that we Western women can do to help get rid of the negative image that Middle Eastern women have in this society? What is it that we should be doing about this?
Get equal pay.
Sounds good to me.
That is it. As soon as you do that, you will have really
all
better
the power to change
Exactly.
everything that you need to change.
Exactly.
My guest on Commonwealth Journal has been Wafa Salman, founder of the Institute for Near Eastern and African Studies in Cambridge, Massachusetts.